how I plan to grow from an $8.4 million property portfolio to an $11 million property portfolio in the next 12 months. My name is Casey Taylor. I'm the host of the Tailored Property Wealth podcast. And in today's episode, I am discussing my plan over the next 12 months to get to an $11 million property portfolio. The strategies that I'm implementing, the locations that I'm looking to purchase in, and how I'm going to get there. So let's get into it today. The first thing that I have in motion at the moment is selling one of my properties currently. And the reason that I'm selling that property is because it's in my personal name and this property doesn't have any value add potential. And I'm at the point in my portfolio where I have secured some purchases last year that I'm creating dual occupancy strategies on, and I want to shift this property in the personal name, offload that one, get it out of the personal name, and I will secure another property that is a dual OC play. So that will take it to 3 dual OCs. So essentially, purchase the established property, build a second dwelling at the back of that property, strata title those, create that second income, manufacture equity, and I'll talk about that equity that's being manufactured and what I'm going to do to utilize that. That property that I'm selling and then purchasing the new dual OC is actually going to be purchased in a company and trust entity. I'm not going to go into heaps of detail on that today. However, where I'm at in the portfolio, it makes sense to be purchasing in these entities. There are benefits to continue to grow that property portfolio. Now, the 2 dual OCs that I purchased last year, those established dwellings where I'm creating those, they were both purchased in trusts as well. So those 3 purchases are purchased in 3 separate entities. So that's the couple of plans, just shifting that one from personal, offloading that one, doesn't have the value add potential, and getting another property where we can add that dwelling to it. Now, the 2 purchases that I made last year for the dual OC strategy in the trusts, I'm looking to now build the new dwellings on both of those properties. So I'm right now in the process of obtaining finance to be able to do the first build on one of those properties. And my plan of attack is I will do that first build. As that first build's getting close to completion, I'll get finances in motion for the second dual OC, and then I'll commence that around the finish date. I could probably look at doing 2 at once, but managing everything and not absorbing heaps of my personal time outside of work, I'll just do 1 at a time. You're also got to factor in as well, when you are doing a construction loan for this type of thing, you're going to have drawdown repayments and you're going to have to start making repayments before you're obtaining that rental income. So it's just something to factor, and I'm just balancing that with the cash flow instead of doing 2 at once. But essentially over the next 18 months, with a build time of 6 months from start to completion, I'll be able to churn one out every 6 months. So the aim is to get this one hopefully started next month. And then from there in the new year, I'll start to get the second one in motion and have that one completed. So I would say mid next year, both of those should be completed. That's the goal. Now, what I'm also doing at the moment as part of this finance is refinancing a couple of my other properties that are in my personal name that have available equity. And this is the powerful thing about growing your property portfolio, is extracting that equity and putting that equity to work. So many people with the owner OC sit there with this dormant equity. They don't do anything with it. They're just hyper-focused on trying to pay that debt down. But in reality, using that equity and putting that to work into more assets is going to build far more wealth. It's going to set you up financially in a far stronger position than just trying to reduce debt on your own occupied property. So I'm going through that at the moment. And these two properties, I've already extracted equity out of them for further purchases. So this is the power of getting in those right locations where they're going to perform well. I purchased them 4 or 5 years ago. I've extracted equity for more purchases, and I'm now able to go back and do that again. An important thing to note is I am going to higher interest rates doing this than what I'm currently on with the lenders for these properties. A lot of people do not want to do that. They don't want to give up their current rate and go to a higher rate because it's going to cost more. But if you set your buffers up correctly, if you extract enough equity, some of that equity can remain as a buffer to absorb cash flow, but you're also building wealth. You're building your net wealth base, and that's what you need to do to get out of the rat race and to retire before the age of 65. That short-term mindset of just focusing on the interest rate, and if the interest rate goes up or the interest rate's not what you want, you say no. How can you find a solution? And the rate really does not bother me, honestly. Yes, it's going to be higher, but I put those things in place to be able to mitigate that. And at the end of the day, the decisions you make, you want to be making to build your net wealth base significantly, not just paying down that owner-occupied debt. Now, with the two purchases that I'm looking to make from the equity extractions, the first one is going to be, which I'm in the process now, is 650K purchase in Victoria in Melbourne. That is where that one will be purchased. That purchase will be made within a company and within a trust, and it's probably going to be one of the entities that's holding a property in Queensland. That is that first purchase that I'm looking to make in the next 12 months. Obviously, we've got the Queensland dual OC that I'll be doing as well, that new purchase, but it's not an additional purchase to the portfolio. I'm not looking at that way. I've offloaded one to replace it with that value add where we can then add another dwelling down the track. And that's really the mindset with offloading that personal property. Yes, I've sold one. I really didn't want to sell it. It would still perform long term. However, I want to get that property that I can then turn into another property. So it's a sidestep, but it will get me to an additional property in the next 12, 18 months. That's that purchase. A Vic purchase, I'll be targeting a large piece of land, a house in that area. I will then, once this first dual lock is built, because of the equity that's going to be created in that, it's going to be a build of 450. Vals on completion, we work off 700K, but it will val a lot higher than that. So there's going to be a massive amount of equity there. I will extract equity from that purchase and go into another purchase into Vic, into Melbourne, diversifying into that marketplace, leveraging that equity to go again. That purchase, I'll probably be targeting a 700K purchase. When this episode is released, we would have already released an episode on Melbourne. 12 months ago, we were not targeting Melbourne. However, it's early in its growth cycle now. We like Melbourne. So that's where a couple of those new purchases will be in that Queensland dual lock in Brizzy. And I will probably continue to build and purchase dual locks in the Brizzy marketplace as well, because you can purchase really large sites and be able to do that dual lock. So that is essentially the plans in the next 12 months. I would love to be able to do more, but I think that's probably a decent amount of action within 12 months. So factoring in the new builds and the new purchases, and this is with no growth across the portfolio, that's going to be an increase of $2,750,000 to the gross wealth base. That is going to bring me above the 11 mil mark. And that is not factoring, like I said, any of that growth. So it's probably going to sit higher than that. The reality is potentially I might not be able to pull these goals off in the next 12 months. Something might happen. A lender might say no. A lender policy could change, and that could affect me. I remember early in my journey, I had a goal to purchase a property for a number of years, and it took longer, saving the deposit and all the rest of it. But you just have to continue to focus on those goals and make it possible. And sometimes you got to set those goals where it might be a little bit of a stretch to achieve that. However, you've got to do it. If you don't hit it in that time frame, don't get disheartened, don't get unmotivated. You just have to continue to chip away at it until you make it possible. I've just, in a previous episode, talked about the mindset of a property investor. I see so many people, as soon as it doesn't go their way in their head, they go, fuck it, it's too hard. We'll revisit this in 12 months. And then they're going to be paying 50, 100K more for that same asset. It's just important to continue to chip away. If it doesn't go exactly to plan, that is okay. And this is why sometimes you stretch your goals. You make them a little bit unachievable. So if you do achieve them, it's a great outcome. If you fall a little bit short or it takes a little bit longer, that's okay. That is the goal over the next 12 months. I hope you like this one. I hope it gives you a little bit of insight into my plan of attack with the portfolio. As a buyer's agent who purchases property in Brisbane, in Melbourne, it will actually give you the confidence that I'm getting in and purchasing property myself. And that's why we believe in the market so much. If you get the purchases right, you're going to get that capital growth. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'm looking to do one on how I plan to get to a $20 million property portfolio in under 10 years since investing. If that is something that you would like to see, leave a comment below, let us know. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to work with us, book in a discovery call. We can see if there's an opportunity to be able to help you execute on your property goals. You might have heard one of these strategies today and it might interest you and you might want to implement that, but you don't know how. Reach out, we'll book in a call and see if you might be one of the limited clients we work with each month. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a good day. See you on the next one.